Welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Russell S., who's come to share on a reading from our big book, which reads, "Painfully aware of being somewhat abnormal, the man didn't understand what it meant to be an alcoholic." He's going to share for around up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. Russell, it's over to you.
Yeah, thanks. My name's Russell. I'm an addict. It's nice to be here amongst you. 3 o'clock in the morning doesn't really roll for me much, though. It's interesting because if I get asked to speak, and I love our fellowship, and it's like I say no quite a bit when it comes to speaking at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I get responses like, "Well, you'd go to any lengths to use," and it's like, do you know what? I've got a level of normality in my life at the moment. I'm very proactive in my local community with this sort of stuff, and I'm getting old. But it's nice to be asked. It's nice to be here. That reading that I chose, which I particularly like and I particularly identify with. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal. I didn't understand what it meant to be an alcoholic. And, I can identify with many people as they were learning about what this is for them, the addiction or alcoholism. And, I've been trying for many years to get clean and sober. And I was always successful in doing a detox. But I couldn't quite grasp why it was that I used again. And, I had no concept of 12-step recovery. I had no understanding of what the fellowships were. I'd never even heard of them. I was street homeless when when I went through my final detox. Had been for a decade or so. I thought Alcoholics Anonymous was a drop-in centre where you got a sleeping bag and a sandwich. That's as much as I knew about, what I now understand to be resources in the community. But I knew nothing about alcoholism. I knew nothing about drug addiction, and painfully aware of being somehow abnormal. I just didn't understand why I kept picking up. The last couple of years of my using, I went through residential detox 7 times in 2 years. I would leave, and it was sincere attempts. I genuinely wanted to stop and stay stopped, but I would leave and not understand why I picked up again. And I'd have, appointments set for housing. I'd have things to do, healthy things to do. I had a support network, mental health workers, homeless charities, shit like that. So they were putting stuff together for me. All I needed to do was leave the detox and go to a hostel, and there'd be a room there for me. And sometimes I couldn't even get as far as the tube station, and it baffled me, when I came to CA, and listen, I'm a product of Cocaine Anonymous. I only do Cocaine Anonymous. I don't go anywhere else. I didn't go anywhere else. I was very fortunate and blessed. I came in when the fellowship was on fire, and I heard a message of depth and weight, and I've stayed since. But I didn't need you to educate me around this thing called a phenomena of craving, that confusing language that we throw at newcomers expecting them to understand what the hell we're talking about. Because I knew that once I started using, I had little or no control over how much I used or when I was going to stop. Right? That bit, I'd fathomed out myself. Absolutely. I didn't need to read any literature about it. I knew that was the case with me. Sorry to say it, if that was your penny drop moment, but that's how it was for me. The it was always the case. It was always the case that, and I wasn't too substance specific. I like heroin, I like crack cocaine, I like vodka, I like shitty cider. I'm not that specific as to what I use, but once I started, I would seem to keep going. So, and I'm quite an intelligent guy, so I'd fathomed out that all I needed to do was stop. And that's when it got really difficult. That's when it got really, it uses those bits in those words in the book. It says pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. That's what I was like coming out of a detox. That's what I was like trying to fathom out why I picked up again. It wasn't the degrading things I was doing in my using. It was those moments between detoxing and picking up again. And it was just like, what the hell's going on? How has this happened again and again and again? And I was baffled, and I kind of resigned myself to the fact that maybe this was just going to be my life, and maybe I was just going to be one of those sad cases, and that was it. And in my last detox, I met a gentleman. He used to do the night shift, and he'd seen me in this. I'd been through, as I said, I went through this detox 7 times in 2 years, and he'd watched me leave with a fierce determination to not pick up again. And a couple of days later, a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, I'd be back in there. And I can remember him attempting to speak to me, and I wasn't a very social creature, so I wasn't into small chat. I just wanted to curl up and get through my detox really. But the last time I was in there, he took me into this little quiet room, and his name was Chris. He was a flag-waving member of Narcotics Anonymous, and on the table he had a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He didn't open it. He didn't use language like phenomena of craving. But he spoke to me quite gently about how it was for him as a drug addict, and he talked about these patterns of using once he started, and told me a few stories. As I said, I'd fathomed that bit out myself, but I identified with him and gave him a few stories myself. We've all got them, haven't we? Get a big gyro, and it's like, right, I'll spend 20 quid on this and 20 quid on a bit of white, 20 quid on a bit of brown, get a bit again, and then I'll leave 50 quid to top up my phone, or I owe so-and-so 20, and yet I'd go in the crack house and, it's just all gone, saving money for my nephew's birthday. I can remember that scenario, and I told Chris that story. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd been doing a bit of work. You know what I mean? I'd been doing a bit of work and I had some money, and it was Alex, my nephew's birthday. He was a Manchester United fan. I knew the sports shop I was going to get him. I was going to get him a full Manchester United kit. And I'm just going to have one. The shop doesn't open till 10. It's 8. So I went up the Cali Road and hit the pipe, and this is beyond my mental control. So once I started, it's like beyond my mental control. So I'm thinking about still needing to buy this football kit as I'm handing another £20 over. And then as I'm handing the £20 over, I'm confused. I'm trying to rationalize it. And how I'm rationalizing it is, well, I don't need to get him the kit bag as well. I'll just get him the outfit, the shorts and the shirt. And then he doesn't need the shorts really, he just needs the shirt. And then I walk out of there 4 or 5 hours later and I'm like, what the hell? I love that kid to bits. And so I shared these stories with Chris, and he but when he held my attention is he asked me, Why do you pick up each time you've left here? And just like the big book said, I so desperately wanted to have a plausible reason. You know, she'd left me, or I was unemployed, or I was homeless. I so desperately wanted to have a plausible, reasonable excuse. But in that moment and the way that he asked me, hand on heart, I had no idea. I had no idea why I went through that experiment again. And he talked to me about the greater aspect of drug addiction, the greater aspect of alcoholism. And he talked about, you know, this queer mental twist, the inability to remember the consequences, the inability to remember the promises of that I'd made myself or others. And it kind of, it made so little sense. It was perfectly digestible to me. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say there. It was that's the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard that makes sense to me, that I don't have the ability to remember. And as I said, he had a big book in front of him. He didn't get no fucking highlighters out, sorry to swear. He didn't get no highlighters out. He didn't go tell me to go away for 6 weeks and highlight the musts and the promises. God bless him. But then he talked about an aspect of being a human, being a man that really resonated. He talked to me about what he felt like, this internal, first time I'd heard the word used in a common conversation, this internal unmanageability. And he talked about coming out of detox and feeling lonely and scared and not good enough. And like just this overwhelming sense of doom. So he's held my attention. He's put these aspects of alcoholism together for me. And, I mean, really the experience I had in that conversation was, I'm doomed. I'm fucked. Like that was my first step experience. I am absolutely busted. There is no way with this. I don't know what to do. And he said to me, as I said, Chris was a strong, flag waving member of Narcotics Anonymous. He said, look, Russell, I suggest from here, you go down to a little town, on the south coast. There's a fellowship there called Cocaine Anonymous. Why don't you try there? So, I first went to Southampton. I ended up in a treatment center. I was still defiant that, cause I wasn't listening enough when people were talking about, 12-step fellowship. You see, I still had this, very ingrained concept that Alcoholics Anonymous or such like were drop-in centers where you got a sleeping bag and a little food voucher or a sandwich. That's what I had. And when people did try to explain to me and say, well, no, it's people the same as you, Russell, and they'll deliver that we help each other stay clean and sober. I'm like, there's not a lot that I can teach anybody about staying clean and sober. So if you're all the same as me, I don't know how we're going to get on. So I done my best to avoid going to the meetings. The meetings weren't compulsory in this treatment center I was in. I was in there about 10 days and I so wanted it to get better. I so wanted to feel better, and I wouldn't give you the satisfaction of knowing that I was falling apart. This is by now I'm like 18 days away from substances, and I'm sitting around people and they're talking about how grateful they are and how happy they are and the gifts of recovery. I'm like doing my best to smile and yeah. And inside I just felt like it was falling apart. I just felt awful. I just felt lonely. Nobody would understand me. And, we used to have to do these TDs, and I remember I was washing up in the kitchen, and the staff brought in this lady and introduced her to me. She said, "Look, she just arrived today. She's going to help you in the kitchen, and here's an ominous warning for you newcomers, which none of you will pay attention to because we've all been." So I'm there washing up, but there's this new girl that's just arrived. I'm falling apart. You've got to picture the scene. I weighed about 6.5 stone. I was a shade of yellow and grey that Dulux couldn't fucking match. I had no teeth. They were floating around, right? I was covered in abscesses and sores. And within 10 minutes, we decided that destiny had brought us together, and we were due to spend the rest of our lives together. And whilst that was based on a fantasy and bullshit, I can tell you now the feelings I got from that were remarkable. And I knew a new freedom, and I knew a new happiness. And that ache that I'd been experiencing just disappeared. And I sat in those morning check-ins for the first couple of days because we were doing that tiptoeing across the landing. And I felt good. And morning check-in, the first morning after, "Oh mate, I'm very positive about this recovery thing. I've got some hope in my life. I feel fantastic. I'm grateful for the breakfast I've just had. Life's looking good." Second day, same thing. Third day, I'm starting to look across the room and I'm starting to realise, without ever doing any self-reflection in the way of inventory, but I'm starting to realise that actually what I am is I'm taking advantage of somebody for my own benefit, right? Took me a while to admit that, but those early relationships I had in recovery, it was very much about me trying to fill this achy void I had in me. And I started to feel guilty. And they used to take us out onto this football pitch because we weren't trusted into town, high risk situations and all that sort of stuff that they talk about. So I'm sat there on this football pitch. The guys are all playing football. This is the end of August in the south of England. I look down and there's a cluster of about 50 Liberty Cap mushrooms there. Now, if I were to write you a list of the sorts of substances I like to use, mushrooms weren't really on that list, or they were very far down it. But I swear to you, with absolutely no consideration, I thought, I'm going to eat those, and I ate them. If there is anybody new here, if there is anybody that's in treatment, I would strongly recommend you don't take 50 Liberty Cap mushrooms before going back into a treatment centre, especially a treatment centre where there's a group therapy session just about to start, a group therapy session where this girl that I've been taken advantage of decides that she's going to get honest with the group. So I'm sat there, I'm trying to keep the carpet on the floor and the wallpaper on the walls, and I can hear my name. And people seem to be getting very animated towards me. And I was quite fortunate. I had all these ASBOs in London, so they couldn't kick me out of the treatment centre because they had a duty of care. They needed to put me somewhere. So they put me in a room upstairs until they find out what to do with me. And the next morning, a gentleman got in the car to drive me to the airport, to drive me to the train station. And he pulled over the car, and he had this fucking book as well. He had this book on his dashboard. Peter, his name was. And he pulled over the car and he said, "Look, Russell, this is the option that I can give you, right? I've spoken to Chris in City Roads, who I know very well. I believe you're an addict of the hopeless variety. You need to learn more about that. You've got two alternatives. You've got two choices here. I've got a travel warrant and £25 cash, and you just get on the train and go back to London, and you're on your own. Or I can drive you down the coast to a place called Bournemouth, where there's a little fellowship called Cocaine Anonymous, and they might have something that's on offer there for you." And, just like the book says, these aren't easy alternatives to face. And I'm sitting there like, what was being offered was misery or possibly a chance to get well. Now, I'm thinking about those options. It took me a couple of minutes because I'm latched onto the £25. I'm latched on to knowing very well. I'm not a mug when it comes to drugs. Like, a bit of gear will give me exactly what I'm looking for. Listen, drugs done for me what I couldn't do for myself. I hear people saying the drug stopped working. I don't know if I understand you when you're talking about that, because let me tell you this. When I put some heroin into my body, it does exactly what it says it's going to do. It gives me a moment of relief, and that's all I'm interested in. I'll deal with the pitiful, sad, awful palaver that comes after it, but just give me a moment of relief, just a moment. So I thought about it, and for the first time in my life that I could remember as an adult, I said, I don't know what's best for me, Peter, you decide. And he said, right, we're going to Bournemouth. And that's my sobriety date, September the 1st, 2004. Walked into a meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. I met this little hairy ass scaffolder who could barely read and write. I went to leave the meeting. The first meeting I went to leave. He stood in my way. He said, what are you doing? Do you need a lift back? I said, I've only just got here. I'm in a facility. I'm meant to walk back with the others, but it looks like they've gone. It was raining. He said, I'll give you a lift back if you want. So I got in his car. My first time in Bournemouth. I didn't know the town. We're driving round and round, and as we're driving round and round, he's talking. And I'm getting these odd thoughts that, listen, I don't know Bournemouth that well, but it doesn't take this long to get anywhere in Bournemouth, surely, right? But again, so just like Chris, just like Peter, he had one of these on the seat. Right? He's thrown it in the back car. He never pulled over the car, got out highlighters and started reading stuff. I thought he was a recovery guru. Since studying the literature, I realised that he was just giving me an adequate presentation. And what he done is he spoke to me about himself, and he talked about powerlessness in a way that I could understand. Very, very similar to Chris. He talked about an inability to control his drinking and his using when he was drinking and using. And when he stopped, it was almost impossible. It was impossible for him to stay stopped. And I could identify with that. He also shared about this thing that went on for him, this lack of belief in himself, this loneliness, this boredom, this restless, irritable, discontent state. And he asked me what I thought of the meeting. I said it was pretty good. He said, did you believe some of the people that were speaking in there? Do you believe that they've overcome their addiction? I said, well, they seemed happy enough. He said, do you think it could work for you? Can you think your way out of this? I said, no, I can't. He said, do you think that we might be able to introduce you to something? Are you willing to believe that? I'm like, yeah, let's have a go at it then. And then he pulled over the car. Much to my amazement, he pulled over the car. It was a drizzly Friday night in Bournemouth. He pulled over the car, opened his door and said, get out. And we got on our knees, and I just repeated what he said. And he said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I haven't got much planned. He said, why don't you come around to my place, and I'm going to watch a video. So we arranged the time. I turned up on time at his flat, his apartment, knocked on the door, came in. I sat there. He's made me a cup of tea. I said, well, what DVD are we watching? He said, well, I'm going to watch Terminator. You're going to sit over there. I'm going to show you how to do what's called the fourth step. And he sat with me for about half an hour, got me going into a fourth step. And during the course of the morning, helped me when I got stuck. I left there that night with an amends list. Now, I don't really give a flying fuck whether you want to call that popcorn step work or whatever I really don't care. I've reworked and worked and reworked and worked and reworked the steps. Okay. I continue to rework the steps. All right. What he'd done was he could smell the desperation on me, you know. Short, very soon afterwards, we got into book studies. This is this information, this is this information. But he knew what his job was. His job was to at least give me the opportunity to realize that there was a flimsy reed, even if I didn't grasp it, that there was a flimsy reed and there was an opportunity and there was some hope, and take this action. And that's what I did. And I stuck with him for a while. He suggested I find a home group and I go to other CA meetings. He did suggest, and listen, it's a suggestion for that I pass on to people. Listen, I'm sorry. If it's your thing, that's great. If you're into candlelit meditation meetings, fucking hats off to you. That's great. I'm going to hang out in the literature study meetings. That's me. You know, that's what I prefer. That's where I try and find new people. And that was it. I'd like to say it was really hard and complicated, and it wasn't. It was. He talked to me about principles and what they were. It's very easy to work a first step and half of the 12th step, isn't it? It doesn't last very long. He started talking to me about being responsible. He started talking to me about paying taxes. He started to me about being honest in all of my affairs, or trying to be, and working towards that. It was fucking outrageous that he encouraged me and expected me to pay back people that I'd stolen money from. I can remember saying to him, "What, even the ones that might have forgotten about it?" And he's like, "Yeah, everybody." Go and do what you need to do. And that was it. You know, get a home group, read the big book, go to meetings, try and be of service, work the steps, all of them. Try and develop a relationship with a God, a higher power, call it what you like. Something that I still can't explain to you today. He gave me a gift of a saying which well, it's written on a bit of paper in my book. I'm like, you know, some of you might identify when I'm going into this big debate with myself and with anybody with listening, trying to define this thing called God, right? And he said to me, "Russell, if God was big enough to be explained, if God was small enough to be explained, he wouldn't be big enough to be God." And it was just one of those nonsensical statements that made sense to me. And I went, okay, that'll do for me. And I've never tried to define it. I've never tried to comprehend it. And I've given up trying to explain it. What I do know is deep within me is a fundamental idea of something that's other than self, something that's other than my thinking, that seems to warm me and steer me towards certain decisions when I sit quietly enough, which some of you may call meditation. When I sit quietly enough and I acknowledge verbally what I need help with, which some of you may call prayer. And it's served me very well. I've been down that route of memorizing the step 3 prayer, the step 7 prayer, the step 11 prayer, and I lose the sincerity. I'm sorry, I lose the sincerity. Trying to remember all those words. It sounds great. It looks fucking fantastic when you're with a group, if you're able to, yeah. But you know what? Just sitting quietly and I could do with a bit of help. Any chance of some help? I don't know what to do. And another great prayer is, thank you so much. I'm so blessed. Point me in a direction you think I can be of service. That's it. You know? So I hear people say, "Oh, the easier, softer way." Yeah, I'm sorry. If you're doing that, knock yourself out. I can't remember it. I've been around 21 years. I couldn't, with sincerity, repeat those prayers. I could do intellectually, but I'd be focusing so hard on intellectually saying the prayers, intellectually remembering it, I'd be forgetting why I'm doing it. So what's my life look like today? It's kind of cool. It's all right. I don't know. I mean, what do you want out of this? If you'd have asked me what I wanted as a new person in my recovery, I would have come out with all of the, I want the jobs, I want the money, I want the girl, I want the thing. I'm just so grateful that I haven't smoked crack today. I haven't injected. And if you think that there's more on offer than that, then great, give it a shot. Like, take care of that. This thing, whatever you are, whatever this energy is, whatever this power is, I'm a strong-willed individual, quite healthy in my own will, in many areas, right? Can you deal with this obsession, this queer mental twist that doesn't scream at me to go and smoke crack? It doesn't scream at me to go and have a drink. What it says to me is, you don't need to join that meeting at 3:00 in the morning. Why don't you just send a little text? They'll understand. You don't have to meet that guy that called you asking you for help. Pass his number on to Brian. Whilst you don't have to sit down and I don't know what you guys are like. I do written inventory. I do written inventory every day, without fail. I've got sheets of inventory here. My housekeeper thinks I'm a fucking lunatic. Fortunately, she doesn't read much English, but she sees enough that, it's like, who is this guy, Inventory, written inventory. I'd be lying if I say I do it every night. I do it 5-6 nights a week. I sit down, I write inventory. And I do these things and sanity returns. Just say yes. You said yes 2 months ago, turn up. That's a sane thought. Don't pass Brian that number, or if you do pass Brian that number, that's fine, but you take time for this guy as well. And this flimsy read that I can't explain to you, don't understand, don't profess to understand, is operational in my life, and I have evidence of it. I'm looking at my watch. I've got 4 minutes. I'm a bit anal if somebody says speak for 40 minutes, I'll speak for 40 minutes. So demonstrations of this energy in my life. I've had. I got arrested. I was about 3 years clean and sober. I was doing some service I was living in the UK then. I was doing some service in the for the UK area. Fellowship was quite small at the time. wasn't what it is now. And we were going for a business meeting. It was a European regional thing. We're going to a business meeting in Amsterdam, and I'd flown to Holland, proud as punch, right? And I used to work in a bar in The Hague. There I go again. I used to work in a bar. Now what I used to do was stand behind a bar in The Hague and give away their drink, pocket the money and sell drugs from there, right? So I owed this guy an amends, and I'd managed to get him on the phone, and Dave, his name was, and I said, look, Dave, I tried contacting you before, managed to get hold of you, but I'm arriving in Holland tomorrow. I'd like to come and see you. I'd like to sit down. There's some stuff that I'd like to admit to you, and I need to make restitution. And he went, yeah, I've been waiting for this fucking call. You can't, no, all that sort of stuff. So we've arrived in Holland, and I've started calling him, and I can't get an answer. And I'm calling the bar, and I can't get an answer. And that weird obsession thing. Right? As I say, it's not always like going smoke. It's much more cunning, baffling, and powerful than that. So it tries to separate me from taking the right action. So I was going to the US a couple of weeks after that. So in my head, I'd like God, because all of a sudden I know what God wants, right? God doesn't want me to pay this money back because I had this money. I had quite a lot of money in my back pocket to give this guy Dave for what I'd stolen from him, or what I'd estimated I'd stolen from him. God obviously doesn't want me to give Dave the money back. He wants me to have a nice holiday in America. That's what I'd made of this whole scenario. So, but all day I tried, no answer. We've come to fly back in the evening, and I was traveling with three other delegates and the trustee of the region, and we're coming to leave Schiphol, and they've scanned my passport, and I could see this red flashing light going, and I'm lent on the counter, and I'm thinking that's quite strange, a little red flash. Next thing I know, I'm in handcuffs and I'm being bundled off for an outstanding warrant. I lived in Holland for 10 years. I had a bit of genuine stuff that I'd forgotten about. Anyway, I got arrested for an outstanding warrant, and they've got me in this side office which just had these top windows. They're really quite sweet because the guys I was traveling with, they found out that I'd been nicked, and they're holding up credit cards and things like that to the window. Oh, Russell's in trouble just in case he. So the officer's there, and he said, "There's a warrant out for your arrest. You've got an outstanding fine that needs paying. Are you in the position to pay it?" And I said, "Well, I do have an amount of cash on me, and if I've got enough to pay it, I'm more than willing to pay it, and I've got a small amount on my card." And so he went off. He totaled it up. He came back. And the amount I owed for that amends, which I was unaware of, I didn't know there was a warrant, was within like €2 of what I had in my back pocket. It was the same amount that I had. So do I want to start getting into, well, God didn't want me to do Dave. He wanted me to do the Dutch government. Who knows? But I had enough in my back pocket to clear away that outstanding fine, and that's how these incredible things have materialized. That's how this thing that many of us call God expresses himself in my life. These strange coincidences and situations that arise. I got back to the UK. My phone went the next morning, and Dave called me and went, "I don't give a fuck. Where's my money? You said you'd bring me." So that was something else that needed to get cleared up. But what I'm saying, I've had these experiences in my life. I've had things happen in my life that are truly remarkable. I am a product of Cocaine Anonymous. I'm grateful to Cocaine Anonymous. I try to be approachable. I try to remember what it was like for me, 24 hours, 7 days, 3 months, and I try not to be too preachy. Most of the people that preached on me when I came in, they're not here anymore. They're not here anymore. That's not what the book says and all that stuff, Anyway, I'm rambling. 42 minutes, that's your lot. Thank you for letting me share.
Wendy, do you want to come in and ask your question?
Hi, I'm Wendy, a grateful recovered addict. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the meeting. And thanks for your share, Russell. I loved it. I loved how, no nonsense it was and how straight to the point it was. And, I took so much from it, just its simplicity and its power. I really enjoyed it. And I was just wondering, my experience, I've been around a few years now, and drink and drug isn't a problem, but the problem's me, which has always been the case. And I was wondering if you've what problems you've experienced in your recovery, you know, those hiatuses, those hiccups, and how you've kind of expanded your recovery, and, you know, like it says in the book, to expand your spiritual outlook and remain in fit spiritual condition. What does that look like for you?
Okay. I could be like, what's it like for me? So this is a program of action for me, right? I get the prayer and the meditation, but it's action. And sometimes some of my conclusions of inventory, I just need to take action on it. So relationships are really difficult for me. So I found how to have a successful relationship with with a female, and that is, I don't have them. That sounds fucking odd, doesn't it? I've tried it. I'm not very good at it. I'm too selfish. I can't compromise at that level. And I get myself into scenarios and situations that are uncomfortable for me and uncomfortable for the person I'm with. I was in a relationship up until about 18 months ago, and I couldn't commit any further, and that was it. So, I mean, I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now and a bit old. It's not such an important thing as it was when I was 28 or something. But money can be an issue as well. It brings out the unhealthy side of me. How do I maintain myself and be in fit spiritual condition? As I said, I do quite a lot of inventory. I do quite a lot of inventory. I've lost jobs, I've lost money, I've lost girls, but it's very successful recovery in my world, you know, because you know, I've been through all of those scenarios and situations, and you know, stay clean and sober, and come out of it with sometimes a lesson, sometimes not. I don't even know, Wendy, if that answers your question.
Thank you, Wendy, for your question, and thank you, Russell, for your answer. Next up, we've got Randy. Do you want to unmute?
Hi, everybody. I'm Randy Gorn. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic. Thank you for the pitch, buddy. My life is blessed with your friendship, and I love the way you talk about here in Arizona. We call it, you know, we tell the truth and we give them a hug, and that's what those folks early in recovery did for you. And I think that's really the essence. And I like the way that you talked about that aspect of it versus, you know, telling people what to do and coming really so hard. We tell them the truth, but we give them a hug and you know, these are the truths about your life and about mine, but you're going to be okay. My question is, what is it like to be your sponsor's second favorite?
You're a dick, Randy. We have the same sponsor, Randy and I. So, yeah.
Thank you, Randy. Thanks, Russell, as well. All right, next up, Simon. Do you want to come in with your question?
Oh, 2 seconds, I just run through the door. I had to drive over in the van there and just literally run through the door. Thanks everyone for service. Thank you, Russell. I want to really thank you, because I've got you to thank for actually coming back into this fellowship. I got a new sponsor after coming back from a relapse, and she put me on to Audio Anonymous, and the first one I come to was Russell S. at a convention, and that story just fucking grabbed hold of me. Sorry for swearing, just grabbed hold of me, dragged me back in by the scruff of my neck. So yeah, I haven't really got a question. I just had to come in and thank you. So thank you very much, and thank you for being on for me tonight.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. I'll just remind everyone that it is Q&A. Joe, do you want to come and ask your question?
Thanks, Danny. Thanks to everyone who's done service. Lovely to see you, lovely to hear you, Russ. My question is really, I know that obviously, you know, you've worked your way through the whole of the service structure. So I guess my question is, you know, how important do you feel that doing service at all levels has contributed to your recovery? How does service strengthen our recovery, I think is the question. Thank you.
For me, it's been absolute. Good to see you, Joe, by the way. For me, it's been absolutely paramount. So selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my troubles. I spoke to you about the inventory that I do, and the conclusion is continuously there. So being of service within our fellowship is it's been a constant for me, and it's given me an opportunity to help others in service. You know, we've got that you know, that triangle in a circle, you know, and for me, the steps and what I learned in the steps was phenomenal. What I experienced in the steps was phenomenal, but there were other areas that I began to realise through trying that I benefited from, and that, you know, being of service was one of them. I didn't know how to use a computer. CA taught me how to use a computer. I didn't know how to use. I knew where to sell one, but I didn't know where to use one. You know, how to use one. That I learned in service, and I've been able to show others. I think it's absolutely paramount to be involved in service, and try and get involved in other areas. I can remember when I first got involved with CA UK, the pamphlets used to get printed, and we used to hand fold them. Can you get that? We used to hand fold them, and I wanted to tell everybody, like, I folded that pamphlet, you know. But you know, we'd get together, maybe 8-10 people, and fold pamphlets. Thank God we didn't have to do that for too long. So the cool thing is the anonymous service. I mean, I've done quite a lot of service that comes with sort of weighty titles, which is nice. But the anonymous service is cool. I remember I was at a convention as a new guy. I really was about 6 months, and I've walked into this room, and there was this guy blowing up balloons, mad as a box of frogs. Some of you know him, a lovable character, former trustee, and he was there on his own blowing up balloons, and he said, "Oh, give me a hand to blow up the balloons." So we blew up about 300 balloons for that one of those big arches over the podium, and as we were leaving, he went, "Thank you for helping me. Don't tell anybody you've blown up those balloons." And I could never understand what he was trying to teach me. And what he was trying to teach me was anonymous service. yeah, Service Joe has been the crux. And you'll hear a lot of stuff, I'm sure you have, I'm not getting involved in all that politics. And yeah, do you know what? Try and work out the planning, the logistics, the discussions, the politics, if you like, of getting a pamphlet on a table, getting a key ring into your meeting. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and many opportunities. But yeah, service has been absolutely, for me, necessary. I've got friends all over the world, not from the 12-step element of the recovery whole, but from the service stuff. Randy, who got his way through the loophole of asking a poxy question there. He lives 9,000 miles away. He's like my brother. I've got a list of people around the world. I sponsor men and women around the world, and most of those connections have come through people I know in from service. So yeah, Joe, and I know you're involved, and thank you. I've taken all my life. It's time. It's give back time. That's it.
Thank you, Russell, and thanks, Joe, for your question. Great question. Last question of the evening. Robin, do you want to come in?
Thank you very much, Danny. Thanks for putting on an amazing meeting. And I don't have a question, sorry. I just wanted to say thanks for getting your ass out of bed. It's 3 in the morning. Tell us your story, mate. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks. We've got time for maybe one quick question if anyone's burning desire. Young, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. My name's Young, recovered addict. Thank you so much, Russell. Thank you for getting up at this time and being a great demonstration of this beautiful program. My question is, what was your most challenging amends and what was your most rewarding amends? Thank you.
That's a great question. I'm going to start with what was the most rewarding, because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Young, you've been around a lot. Like the amends, I thought it was like running around. I see people running around like, right, sorry, next one. Right? So there's this whole thing that happened in many of my amends. So I got married in the south of France, and a beautiful woman, and we were together for years. We got married, and I was drinking and sniffing and that prior to the wedding, but then I picked up a certain substance which for me like really pulls me off course, and so we split up 3 days into the honeymoon in Mauritius. And it broke her heart. I mean, she found I was an IV user, and she found my hip kit, and it just broke her heart. And she went back to France. We were living in France. She went back to France. By the time I got back there, she'd gone back to the UK, and that was pretty much it. That was the last contact we had. She got the marriage annulled, and but when she caught me. When she found the kit, I heard this sound that it was, the sound of a heart being broken, like sincerely, like all her hopes and dreams. That the harm was devastating, and I didn't know how I was possibly gonna put that right. And mobile phones weren't so much of a thing when I was in my first round of amends, and I can remember calling her family on their landline and asking, can you get a message to you? And nobody wanted me to speak to her. And Friends Reunited, or what was it? Friends. It wasn't Facebook. It was something else. And I remember trying to get her on there, and she wouldn't respond. And I sought some guidance, and you know, it was explained to me that the situation, you know, you've tried every avenue, and I genuinely had. You've tried every avenue, it'll come. And I was working overseas. I was fast forward about 7 or 8 years, and I was working overseas, and I came home, and there was a letter on the mat, and I opened it up, and it said, "Dear Russell, I hope this is the right Russell. This is Siobhan. I need some help." So I called her up, and she was a Catholic, and she'd met this wonderful guy. They got engaged, and she wanted to get married, and she wanted to get married in white, and she wanted to get married in a church. And in order for that to happen, I needed to go to be interviewed by the bishop in her, what's it called, diocese. Yeah, I had to go for this meeting and meet with the bishop and let him know that, yeah, I was a fucking scallywag. Sorry, I was a scallywag. I took advantage of the trust that this individual had put me in. We didn't consummate the marriage. That was the most rewarding thing. 8 months after that conversation with that bishop, she sent me a picture of her and her new husband married. That was phenomenal. And the weird thing with that is that the family hated me for what I'd done to her. And fast forward another 5 or 6 years, Siobhan actually called me up and she went, "Do you remember my younger brother, Jimmy?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Jimmy. He's in trouble, Russell. Can you help him?" And, he needed a detox. I was able to get him into City Roads, and just phenomenal, isn't it? Again, that demonstration of this energy that coordinates life. What was the other one? What was the most difficult?
Yeah, the most difficult. Yeah.
I suppose you've had them as well. I've had those because I use quite a structured look. I'm a drug addict in recovery as part of my program of recovery. It was important for me. I've got that pattern when I make an approach. I've had quite a lot of I don't give a fuck if you're clean and sober. I want my money. I never want to see you again. Go away. So I've had those, but I think the most difficult one is, God, I'm going to sound shallow. Yeah, I think the financial ones that just went on and on. It took me 11 and a half years to pay back the money that I'd stolen, not paid back, stuff like that. That was, and then the thing is, I was around, I don't want to sound judgmental or critical towards some of them. I was around people that like, you don't need to be doing that. Yeah, like I'm 10 years. I didn't pay the bank. You don't need, and that's fine. That's your own journey. But yeah, I got busy with that stuff. I owed the tax office 36,000 quid, right? And I've gone, and I was quite new. I was like 18 months or something. And the reason why it was a problem is because I didn't have I'd lost my national insurance number. I'd been like homeless for about 10 years, right? So I couldn't remember my national insurance number. And as soon as I got it, it started triggering all this thing. One of them was the tax office. So they're like, "You owe this much money." And I remember I went to Hammersmith to the office there, and I've gone through my pitch, and it was a bit nervy. It was one of the first heavy ones that I'd made, and I was nervous. And the woman's gone. I'm using words like restitution now. And I could see the woman paying attention to me, and she's gone, "Are you in recovery?" I said, "Yeah, I am." She went, "Why? So my husband's 25 years in AA. Why don't you go back to your sponsor and talk to him? Because I've done a bit with him, And I'm sure it says in there that you negotiate the best deal you can. So why don't you go back and speak to your sponsor? I'll speak to my supervisor and we'll see what we can do to clear out this debt. So I've had those sort of things. Yeah, the money, I suppose. I hate to be so shallow, but the money, it fucking hurt. I wanted new trainers and holidays and things like that. Yeah.